The other thing too, Keely, I think that the other thing on top of everything that you said is that it also normalizes it.
Yes.
So I know like when we're doing kind of our calls with Gabor and Satarm and even the facilitators, right? And they do a personal disclosure about something that you're sharing about, it really, I think it brings compassion too in some ways to be like, you know,
Yes.
you are not alone in this. I've done similar things. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it takes away some of the stigma of some of the things that we're sharing about. So I recently I joined the group in Compassion Inquiry for the suicide awareness, and this is what we talk about is, you know, because I think sometimes we all have dark thoughts from time to time, but it's so taboo to talk about it. And so I think that this is kind of what Compassion Inquiry does, is it allows an environment to talk about things that are taboo, if you will. But the self-disclosure piece, I think, really is a beautiful way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely. And it creates so much safety. It creates safety and
Yeah.
connection. Like it just, it does. There's, automatic. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, I think it's a big part as well is acknowledging that we're not alone, because
Yes.
what shut us
Yeah.
down mostly is thinking that we are the only one experiencing whatever we're
Right.
experiencing at the moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Stephanie Dano, and welcome to Unknowingly Connected, a podcast for people open and curious by nature, with specific interests in the human potential and the greater good. Twice a month, I interview professionals who have gathered their diverse passions or gifts to be in service of human leadership. You will hear from their journey and their techniques, crafted to be within everyone's reach, and explained from a scientific, body, mind, and spiritual perspective. It's all connected, and we might not even know it. Welcome. Today is a special episode. I have invited a few of my former colleagues from a course that I've done a couple of years ago called Compassionate Inquiry. Compassionate Inquiry is an approach created by Gabor Mate. And since I have been graduated from this course, I have received a lot of questions regarding compassionate inquiry. So, compassionate inquiry is a year-long program that has been created from Gabor Mate's approach on working on trauma. And a few years ago, Sat Dharam, which you will hear quite a few times during the conversation, Sat Dharam was working with Gabor on her program called Beyond Addiction, and Sat Dharam organized by a stepping stone the way Gabor used to work with people. Sat Dharam has been our facilitator for a year long, and I was working with, I believe, 25 people in my group, which we call it a pod. And from this pod, I have managed to gather a few of my colleagues that will be present during this conversation today. Mary Russell. So Mary is a compassionate inquiry practitioner and an intern, compassionate inquiry intern, which means she will become a compassionate inquiry facilitator very soon. She's also an Hoffman facilitator, a therapist, mediator, and coach in the UK. You will also hear from Keely Patterson. So Keely is the youth counselor. She has finished compassionate inquiry program, but she hasn't certified yet. However, she has created a focus group to bring compassionate inquiries approach to the youth. You will also hear from Priya Jugal. Priya is a naturopath, a compassionate inquiry practitioner, and an intern as well. She has created a focus group to bring CI or compassionate inquiry in India, and she's also a Beyond Addiction facilitator. And finally, you will hear from Michelle Peddle. Michelle is a compassionate inquiry practitioner. She's finishing her internship and mentoring to become a compassionate inquiry facilitator. She's a therapist, Beyond Addiction practitioner, and Kundalini yoga teacher. And also you will hear from myself. As most of the speakers today, I am a compassionate inquiry practitioner, meaning I've been certified by Compassionate Inquiry. And I hope you will learn from our different point of view and from our experience, compassionate inquiry course or approach, and how do we work with our clients. Enjoy. So good morning, Mary.
Good morning.
So first question I would ask you is, what brought you to do the Compassionate Inquiry program?
Yeah, thank you for that question, because there wasn't any training. I saw Gabor for the first time at a conference, Breath of Life conference in London in 2016. And I'd listened to a little bit of him before. And when I heard him, and as I still do, experience him as giving me the missing pieces of the jigsaw, speaking in my language, identifying exactly my experience, and taking the shame out of it in terms of trauma and addiction and whatever. I was hooked to listening to his teachings. But then the training, so when that appeared, and it just started, I think, in 2019, I just jumped on the opportunity to learn more. From the moment I'd listened to Gabor, I wanted to work the way he worked. I already kind of identified with his style, the directness, the drilling in, the length of the story. So the training just seemed very appealing. It was more than I bargained for, and I'm glad I did it.
Great. So when you started the training, was it for personal purpose or more for working purpose?
A good question. Well, really, I can't do anything for professional purpose if I don't want it personally. I just haven't got the commitment or the discipline. I don't care. It is very much, I wanted it for me so I could pass it on. So it's entirely been in a personal healing that I've used since and still do professionally, but I can only use it professionally because I know what it feels like personally.
Got it.
I want to learn it. Sorry.
No, it was both then, I guess.
It always is both. I can't sort of tell or advise or take somewhere I haven't been myself. And if I don't trust it, and I've got trust issues, I won't be able to do it. There's no authenticity in that. So I absolutely knew Gabor knew a way in to healing that I hadn't heard before, and he made it explicit. And that for me was key. He told us why, he explained it, he gave us context, he gave us answers, that instead of this sort of rather hidden, magical, almost secretive, and I'm being a bit extreme, dynamic of the therapist with the client who seems to be the wisdom and hold all the power. I wanted to know, why you asked me to go into my body? Why are you asking me? What does sit with my feelings mean? And this training gave me the answers which nothing else has.
You've been an intern for nearly a year. Have you noticed any changes in the course?
Yeah, they do a lot more for the bi-weeklies, which every trainee on the year course does. We as interns now drop in on them outside of the bi-weekly, so they get supervised practice, but supervised in the sense of being on side and coaching and helping, because we're only 1 year ahead. There's much more interaction, I'd say, in the bi-weeklies, more kind of probing into the come back with your experiences on the competency questions and things like that. It's not just a check-in and a demo. There's more to it. There's more videos, I think, in the modules. I've come across a few that I definitely don't remember seeing in my year of training. And there's now a hell of a lot more. There's master classes, there's workshops. I mean, there's endless good learning. And the videos also, they want to encourage videos much earlier on, which I highly recommend. Because I don't know about you, Stephanie, but when it came to doing the videos, it was a nightmare. You know, for me, it was a huge challenge. One of the best ways of learning, but I would have appreciated getting more familiar with them and less self-conscious earlier on.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And then there's this question, because again, there's so many people who are interested in doing the course, and I believe it has to do the same as you. They have listened to Gabor, and then suddenly they're like, they want to do compassion inquiry. My take, and that's my own opinion, is like a lot of people got interested and they want to learn about Gabor's approach, but they might not know how hard it is and how intense it is. So what is your experience, or what was your experience during the year we had?
Intense is the right word. Yeah, when you say how hard it is, I think I know what you mean by that. Because Gabor, of course, makes it look easy, because it's who he is. The actual training had to be, to take what he does naturally, having assimilated all his own teachings and practicing it, and then make it a structured training, meant there's quite rigorous learning to go through. There's a lot of material. There's material attached to the modules, which actually, I mean, I remember cursing a couple of times, going, I didn't do this much work for my degree. Why am I having to study this, fill in all these things? But it's good for someone like me, because if I'm not going to be made accountable, I might try and slip my way through it. So it made me have to do the homework, because you have to submit it. It's a huge commitment. And what kept me committed was the learning was priceless. The learning and the healing it was doing and it taught truth to me. And there's never been a time I haven't watched a module and thought, oh, thank goodness I watched that. Or, gosh, I watched that before. How come I didn't get this? The learning is so rewarding. It keeps me at it. But it's not for people who haven't done a lot of work on themselves, I'd say. But otherwise, it is a professional training. It's not a come and get to know Gabor and all the rest of it. It's a professional training that requires, your own stuff. So when I said I was doing it first and foremost for me to then pass on, it's always ongoing for me. It's always going on work. But you have to have a robustness and a resilience, because the material, it's about the truth. It's not there to make you feel nice. It's there to kind of challenge. And there's some of the stuff is triggering, and if it wasn't triggering, then you can't be a human being. So you've got to be able to hold that, and you've got to practice with peers and work with people you've never met in person, and that's going to bring up stuff, as it does.
Is there anything, because I know you've been training, I mean, you work for Hoffman, and you've been trained as a therapist. What have you learned that you haven't learned before in CI?
Yeah.
There might be many, but
yeah, I mean, really, if I wanted a masterclass training on what is really required of the best thing you can do for a client, I'd say this is it, in terms of just what not to engage with, just having it languaged so clearly as instructions, not as a rigid structure, but what your priorities are and how to create it and why you're creating it, the safety, the presence, the engagement, the equal, the self-disclosure. Self-disclosure is not something that is would come into psychotherapy as such. It does come into my work as Hoffman or a facilitator and as a coach. And finally, someone makes sense of it and makes it explicit why all these elements create safety and you're able to connect with the client. And the main thing is it happens in the present. It's got to be in the present you're working with, and not as a concept. You bring the client into connection with the experience in the moment, and it happens in the body. And just a specific way to then get the body to offer memories rather than mental memories, somatic memory, that where the healing is and how to connect to it. It's incredibly efficient, loving, and can do a lot in a short space of time. And it's not about sitting listening to story and validating story. It's validating the experience.
Yeah. And something I remember when we started the course is maybe a tendency to try to find solution or to explain what was happening on behalf of the client. So how is it for you now?
I still have that tendency. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah,
No, I have it myself. I had it myself too.
I'm because there is a part of me, and I mean, there is an aspect of IFS, Richard Schwartzworth, in the. So it's easier to just call. There's a part of me that's a little bit smart arse, wants to be the educator, teacher, because that's a lot of what Hoffman work is. And the good side of it is there's still an element of the client getting to grips with something as to why they're feeling it that CI offers, that I think is fundamentally freeing when they can make the connections. So I think it's two-part: getting the context of why they're feeling it, where it belongs, and being able to feel it in the moment, and being able to hold that and know what holding your own experience means.
I would say, as a therapist, and for what I've seen many times, is you get to see what is going on as the story, but on the other, and you might know so many different cases of different stories, but in that case for CI, you may not have to know exactly what's going on. Even
Absolutely, yeah, but that's a great point. It's not the story, it's the truth of the experience of whatever story we've made up. I mean, the two things I keep quoting that Gabor does is it all goes down in your mind, as in, first of all, your initial experience in life, the world creates your patterns, your beliefs, your attitudes, and all the rest of it. But thereafter, you meet the world through that prism, that paradigm, those beliefs, those patterns. That's one bit. And then what that's activating in your body and what's not been discharged emotionally and energetically, if you can sync up those two, you don't need the story. You just need, what's the belief? When's the original kind of wounding? And if you can risk experiencing it now, you'll get some discharge. It's the truth of the experience rather than I'm just here to hear your story. Because that's just sort of making someone dependent on you. And it's also, you're not really helping someone. It's to the capacity to hold their experience with loving understanding is the healing. But it might be incredibly challenging and even painful to experience it.
yeah.
But that's what happened. That's the truth.
Yeah. So now we're all together. So thank you, Kelly, Priya, and Michelle to join. So my first question, as I said to Mary, is what brought you to do the course, CI, the first course in January last year? Last year, was it? No,
2 years ago.
2 years ago, boy.
Yeah.
So what made you apply to the course and do the course at first sight? So just Kelly, if you want to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got an email. It was a random email. I love Gabor Mate's work, always. Read the books and watched numerous videos, and there's so much learning in it. I got a random email, and it was like, sign up for this new exciting course. And it was, I had just finished work for that year. It was my last day of work. I was sitting up having a glass of wine by the Christmas tree, and I got that email. And so I spent literally the next 2 days, rather than prepping for Christmas, I spent it filling out the lengthy application. And it, to my surprise, I was accepted. It was amazing news. And I really didn't know what it was, but I knew it had to be good.
What was your idea of doing the course? Was it for working purposes or personal purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. Work, but also personal, because you never, you have to heal yourself to help to heal others, right? So maybe I didn't know quite the personal level of that it was gonna be, but yeah, I just knew I wanted to do it. I don't know if I really thought too much of it, Stephanie.
Yeah. What did you get out of the course? Really shortly. I know it's going to be a lot, but
What's my time limit?
maybe in 2-3 minutes, saying like, what did you get? And I know it's not like, it's still a work in progress, but what did you
Yeah,
get after the 4 years?
Like life changing. Like 2-3 minutes is not enough. Life changing on a personal and a professional level. It changes, it helps you to be aware of what's going on for you. It really emphasized the connection between experiences being held in the body, understanding that all experiences are held in the body, how to make sense of it, how to make sense of the way, why we do what we do, why we react the way we do, why we're defended when we are. Being aware of things is how you eventually heal and move through them, rather than allowing them to put a roadblock up. So yeah, it's so much to put into just a couple minutes. But I also want to mention the teaching. So there's how many videos, like 300 hours of videos or something crazy like that. Like those teachings I use in my office counseling all the time. Some of my favorites would be attachment versus authenticity, saying no, the difference between resentment and guilt. When he explains how resentment will kill you. When you say yes to something you should have said no to, resentment will kill you, whereas guilt, it's, well, you feel guilty. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I just find myself relating all the time with my clients, telling stories. And thankfully, he has so many videos out there that you can say, check out this video on YouTube. Yeah, it's, yeah, I could go on and on, but it's just a level. I've never had anything so great, like the healing and the learning. I've never, ever had anything so great in my life. And I love continuing on with it. They've made lots of options with compassionate inquiry to continue on the learning and to still stay connected within the community, not to mention the international community such as this. We are literally all around the world, right? There's 5 of us on here right now, and we're connected, and it's neat for me. I live in northern Manitoba, Saskatchewan in Canada, and it's neat to know, what you guys might do in the UK. And in the focus group that I run, there is, again, it's international. So time zones, it's difficult to arrange those time zones. However, like learning what different people do all over the world is so neat. I just love it.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. Priya, what made you choose to do CI?
Awesome. What a question. I remember when I turned 40, I'm 45 now, so 5 years work there. I just told myself, I said, I would love to live my authentic life. Enough of it. Something, it's not me. And the universe heard my call, and Sadhharm came into picture. And then I did the Healthy Breast program, Kundalini Yoga training. And then when I was finishing my last day of Kundalini Yoga training, and then Sadhharm said, hey, we are starting Compassion Inquiry. And awesome. And that was again a call to dig deeper in myself. And as Keely said, it was end of year. I remember it was Christmas time, and I even told Sadhharm, I said, oh, you're my Santa now. Okay, I'll take the gift from you. And this is how Compassion Inquiry. And I had been, like, past few years, I was reading Gabor's book, and I was implementing his work in my practice. And it really resonated with me. It made sense to me, what all was written there. So that drew me to Compassion Inquiry. And it has been a beautiful journey, knowing myself. And, the lens with which I saw the world has changed. So yeah, that's how I started Compassion Inquiry.
Great. And did you do the course like a little bit like blindly or following your gut or your heart?
I would say following my gut and heart. I have done most things in my life like that. I didn't know that I am stepping into. I knew it's about. I thought it's more about professionally. It would help me, but I had no clue that it's gonna go that deep into my own personal being and existence. So yeah, it was a gut following, and uh, my whole existence has changed since I took compassion query. It has gone so deep in me, and I experience world in a different way.
Hmm. Thank you. Actually, we discussed with Mary before around that is, I mean, I would share because I haven't shared yet. Why did CI? The same as you, but I think I remember on the our first pod meeting when Sadaram was asking, okay, why did you do CI? And I remember saying, like, I want to do it for my client because I had client who had depression and suicidal thoughts and things like that. And she was like, mm-hmm. And I had no idea about how much you will work on yourself, first, and you had to like
Right.
process
Exactly.
your work.
Yeah.
And and that's something also I would like to, I mean, if you can, each of you share, so people are aware that it's not a course about just like, writing like you study and having a ready-made, I don't know, package, but you have to work on yourself quite a lot
Yeah.
before doing anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an experiential thing. And what I have seen the difference is when you have worked on yourself and when you share that work with your clients, patients, you really connect at the same level. It's not that gap that, oh, I know everything, I'll fix you, or I'll tell you what to do. But then it gets at the same plane where you have the guidance within, and I'll just sit with you and let it come through. And it has made a whole lot of difference in my practice. I mean, the way I connect to my patients and how they connect, it's beautiful experience, like human to human, soul to soul.
Okay. And
I think that
sorry?
sorry, Stephanie. I think that in itself, when you're working with someone, just knowing that you're not there, and when you can let them know that you're not there to fix them, that you're there just to be with them, or you're there just to hold space or to hold that pain for them. My experience working with a lot of youth is that sometimes I may have been the first person in that youth's life that has ever been able to hold that space and that pain. That connection just forms automatically when you're able to do that.
What are you doing, Kili, as a work?
So I work with youth. So when I first started, just to go back to your question with Priya, when I first started, I was a few sessions in our biweekly meetings with Satram. And I remember her saying, this is not made for youth. This is not designed to work with youth. Gabor doesn't work with youth. And it's just not. And then I remember being in a Zoom call with him where he stated the exact same thing. And I remember like everything stopped in me and I thought, okay, why am I here? Why am I here? Because I work with youth. So yeah, as a youth counselor, and that was kind of where my passion area was, although I do have some contact with adults and, it's good learning anyways. So when I was in session, I started to use, I'd be in session, and of course I was following the rules of not using it with youth, but it's like you have a toolbox, and this was a tool in my toolbox, and it's like I would be in session and it was the perfect tool that was needed. So I very, very cautiously started treading slowly and lightly with that, and I started having amazing results. So when I reported that back to Satram, and I'm like, I kind of am using it with youth, and she passed that on to Gabor, and that's why I took on leading the focus group for compassion inquiry with youth, because I had amazing results with it. And so it's
You're expanding CI.
yeah, it's good.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And you, Priya,
What are you doing as work?
Uh, as work, I practice as a naturopathic doctor. So every day, I'm passionate about body mind medicine. So compassion query does come into the conversation I have with my patients, and I invite them to have CI sessions when they're ready for it. And apart from that, I do healthy breast programs, which is breast cancer awareness. Uh, and I started Compassion Query Focus Group for India, as I would love to take these teachings to India.
Wow.
Parenting is it's a different concept in India. I was raised there, and I do understand. It's surprising there is no child age society. You know, there are certain things which are just considered a norm. It's like this is how we are brought up. It's a discipline or whatever. So I would really like to, create an awareness of the impact of what parents we do it in with all goodness in our hearts, and we all love our kids, but what impact it has on kids, something around that, and have compassionate healing circles in India. And I just got trained in Beyond Addictions, and I would be doing Beyond Addiction trainings locally here in Canada as well as in India. Yeah, so I'm very excited what future holds for me.
Thank you, Priya. Mary, before you leave, do you have anything you would like to add?
By the way, it's lovely to see to be together like this again. Yeah, I would say my main interest is working with people coming through addiction, not the front line of it, but working to what it was all about. And that's where Gabor, I mean, it's trauma. It's the first time I've heard someone talk about trauma that made sense to me. And it's the first time that I realize it's what's just about the diagnosis of everything. And that's what's really affected how I work with people, because you can always take it back to the trauma and what that means. And that's really been helpful working with recovering addicts, which is one of my main passions. So I love that. So yeah, I know other people have put it to the forefront, but I mean, until recently, trauma was not discussed. Other than a sort of a terrible event that happened. It wasn't explained what it was. It didn't make sense. It was seen as only a few people had it. It was a high drama thing. I love that it's at the forefront now of every addiction conference, embodiment conference that, you were so significant in, Stephanie. You really couldn't do a talk without some trauma coming into it. It's a baseline.
Yeah.
And Gabor's the one that's made that explicit for me. And it makes sense. And it's made my work much easier because that joins the dots completely for me.
Michelle, welcome. And I can, again, same question. My question would be, why did you join CI in the first place?
Yeah, so I joined CI because I've been studying with Sat Dharm for a really long time. I was doing my postgrad in addiction counseling in 2009 when I met Sat Dharm. And at school, we were introduced to Gabor's work. And with the Beyond Addiction that Sat Dharm does, then I attended one of his conferences because he's included in her program. So I've been studying kind of with the both of them for a long time. So when this came through, I was like, I absolutely want to do it. I was just finishing up my master's though. So financially, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, if it's going to work. So I had applied for the bursary because they have a bursary program. And I was like, if I'm meant to take it, then I'm going to get the bursary. And they accepted me. I got accepted for the bursary. So I was like, okay, I'm meant to do it. So there you go.
Okay. And maybe my question would be, did it met your expectation, or did you expect something different? What happened after a year? What
I
have
have,
you, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what I was expecting from the program, but it blew everything out of the water for me for sure. Just finishing my master's in school, they had talked about picking a theoretical orientation to work from, right? They want you to pick a theoretical model and then that's what kind of therapist you are. And so they had always said, you'll have to do more training to figure out what you like and what you don't like. So compassion inquiry, although it's not a theoretical perspective or model, it's an orientation to work from that can blend well with a lot of other things. So for me, it fit that piece of the puzzle. And then other pieces of the puzzle that it fit was the amount of therapy that we were doing, working on ourselves to make sure that we were clearing. And that piece too had always surprised me, because I've been in and out of therapy for a long time. The biggest piece about meeting on a weekly basis like this, Gabor says it in one of his videos. He's like, when your group is really solid, it'll mirror your family of origin. And in the family of origin is where the group can heal those original wounds. So for me, that was a huge piece of what Compassion Inquiry has done, is to allow that healing to go at a much deeper level. So those are like two really big pieces. The other thing is I had no idea how much time would be invested. Like I was like, I feel like this is more intense than the master's program I'm just about to finish. So I always tell people that are like signing up, like make sure you have some time, like, because I didn't realize how much time was involved in the program. Worth every minute though, for sure.
So if we can say, actually, because we haven't mentioned how many days, I don't really recall how many days or how long it would require it from you, but I think it was at least a couple of days a week or something. And how was it for you?
Well, because there's the bi-weekly meeting, right? So every 2 weeks you have a 2-hour, a 1.5 to 2 hour meeting. And then on top of that, you're meeting with your dyad and triad once a week for an hour or two. I think it, like, you're supposed to practice for 20 minutes each and then you flip flop, right? But then there's like a lot of talking that happened. My group that I was with, like we met on, like, you know, they're family now. So we met for like an hour or two, at least a week.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there's all the videos and or the reading, and then the questions and the self-exploration. And then you're watching all these videos of yourself as a therapist. And so you're having to rewatch the videos and see what you're doing, see what you're not doing. It was a lot of time, but totally 100% worth it.
Yeah. I think I would say like nearly 2 days a week, but I might be too much. I don't know. What do you think, like Priya or Keely or Mary?
Yes, I do recall this because when we signed up for the course, I thought, oh, that's no problem, 3 to 4 hours a week. I could easily take a half day a week. I could easily figure that into my work schedule. It actually wasn't. It was a whole lot more than that. But like Michelle said, every moment was worthwhile. And the videos, and I found for myself, I wanted to absorb the information so badly. So I found myself taking a lot of notes. I found myself watching, rewatching, like just, I don't know, like Gabor is interesting. And, you know, he can put a 3-minute video or a trailer to his new documentary coming out, or like just whatever you come across. I find that every single moment he speaks is so, and I don't think I'm just a crazy fan. I don't think, but every single moment he speaks, it makes so much sense and it's so worthwhile. Whereas you can watch other videos out there, sometimes the stuff that you're requested to, you know, do or study, and it's just not as impactful. So it was a big time commitment, but yeah, I don't regret any moment. And now moving forward 2 years after, I find that when we do have Zoom calls with him, I find we just had one not too long ago, and it was a blessing because I just about missed it, and I seen it right at the last minute, and I thought, oh, I had to rearrange some stuff. I thought I better tune in, and I was so glad I did, because it was just what I needed, like, to keep going. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a crazy fan. I don't know.
I've got to go in a minute, so I'll just, yeah, I think the piece and that's been referred to is the time it takes to watch that. Maybe a module has 7.5 hours of material, but it can take double that, because for me anyway, because I'm rewinding bits or taking notes, or something's impacted on me and I have to stop there. So there's that, and then the work that brings up personally to do. And then so it's digesting it. It's a lot to hold, and I'm glad of all of it. But it's more than it says in terms of the hours of material on a module and bi-weekly. It's all the experience that goes with that.
Yeah,
it feels like being a full-time assistant, really.
So And I've seen, because I've worked with our pod, and then when I practice, I work with a little bit other pods. Some people like just drop temporarily because they had so much work to do,
Right.
and I mean, it's not so much work to do on yourself. We are working, all the work in progress, but they had so much things going on that they just pause before doing everything in one go in the full year. So yeah, I think that's maybe, I mean, I don't know what your thought, but I think it's worth mentioning when people want to hurry to get the title. That's
Oh no.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, they've
Yeah.
changed the process now too. So they've changed it slightly since we first went, because we were like, all four of us would have been, well, five with Mari, all five of us would have been kind of the first
Right.
cohort to graduate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they've changed it slightly since, as the program's developed too.
Yeah.
So now you can do the whole program without the intention of certifying, and you don't have to do like the case studies, which take quite a bit of time, and none of that. And or you can go through it and then move towards certification.
Yeah.
So, which I think
Is
is
this
really helpful.
Yeah.
is the certification, Michelle? Is it now? What was the end outcome of that? Is it now the 2-year program to become certified? Is that
Well, they've kind of added some things, right? Because some people didn't want to get certified and just wanted to that's not just, some people wanted to learn about it.
right?
So now there's also the mentoring program, there's also the internship program. So there's a few other additional programs that just continue to enrich the learning. Like if you want to go deeper, if you want to learn more, here's how you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, to go back to when you said people kind of drop off or not drop out, but just for a period of time, right? Just to pause. And there was a few in our pod where that kind of happened. Just to say to that, and I don't know, this is just my perspective, but when we go through life and we have all these defenses that have been built, a lot of it is unconscious, right? So the way that we are, the way that we move through our life, what we do, how we react, like it's done not knowingly. A lot of it is unconscious. That's what continues to kind of blow my mind, is that there's so much unconscious that we do. So compassionate inquiry pretty much opens that up. It pretty much just throws it all in the middle of the room for you to pick up the pieces and to try to, in a very good way. But I think if people go in it just for the professional perspective, maybe that's, that's where it becomes a problem. So just for someone wanting to start into the program, to know fully that there's a huge, if not a bigger, personal aspect to this course than the professional.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And actually, I recall now, with everyone that I've met during the practice, that a lot of people had many major changes in their life through the year, right?
Yeah.
Like some divorce,
So much growth.
things happening.
You just I feel you just shed your skins, Stephanie. You just, it's as Keely's, everything comes to the surface. Your all defenses, everything you have been unconsciously doing, you become aware of it. You're conscious, and it's all raw there. And even though we say it's the first three, the level one, where we do the personal, where we do our personal, go through our personal stuff, but I believe it starts with compassion query, and then you keep digging it. So it never ends, actually.
Yeah.
So if you're prepared, and then you need your self-care piece as well. So be gentle when you do this. So give yourself time to have some breaks in between. Yeah.
I asked a few people if they had questions regarding compassion inquiry or anything, and something specific came up, but actually it came up quite a few times, which is the relationship. So I think each of us, in a different way, had to work with specific emotions, even though CI is a bench out a lot of emotion, but maybe we had something specific to work on. And someone asked, how do we relate, how do we work with shame in CI? So is there anyone who can answer somehow this question? I know it's a really broad question, but yeah, if you've experienced anything related to shame, how does it work with CI?
I can share my experience, and it is with the safety I had in my groups in I was able to talk about the stuff which I had never. And even, talking about it, um, release the shame. And other thing was listening to Gabor and his videos. It helped me understand that this is not my shame. It was projected on me. I didn't do anything bad. It was something was happening, and I made some meaning out of it, and said it's my fault. It's happening, and it's shameful if the world would know it. Stuff like that. So primarily, I would say, just because there is so much safety in our groups, I was able to talk, and that helped me um, release that shame. That's my
Thank you.
experience.
Yeah.
It's too bad that Mari is gone. I always look to her for, she was like the queen of understanding shame. And
I know.
Shame is a really massive thing, and it's really interesting. I learned through the course, and towards the end of it, I learned that I had an incredible amount of shame. I didn't understand it fully. I still don't understand it fully. I hope one day too, and to continue working on it. But for me, the course opened it up, and it made me realize that I had so much shame that it was like a goldfish swimming in water, not realizing they're swimming in water. Like that's how much shame I carried. So again, awareness is always key to moving through things. You have to move through things to heal, or to kind of diffuse, or to rid them. So shame's a huge topic, and yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. But
the other beautiful thing about compassion inquiry is that it helps you, because shame is kind of that emotion, one of the emotions that's under everything, right?
yeah,
And so with compassion inquiry, it creates that holding container, and everybody, like all the facilitators, are really able to hold it and to create that safety. And when you're meeting with people and delving deeper and deeper, all of these different parts of ourselves can feel safe enough to then let the shame come through.
right.
And then I think you hold shame like you would any other feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any different, but since it has been a question that has been raised a couple of times, I think one sometimes we underestimate, and has to do, for instance, in my environment, which is the embodiment world, is anger and repressed anger.
Right.
That is something that sometimes it isn't said, but sometimes a compassionate inquiry practitioner can tell you that you've got some repressed anger for however zen you can look like.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had a couple of colleagues that I could say, there might be, something
Yeah.
there. But also it can be like a simple vulnerability, not being able to open up or cry, or,
Right.
there's a lot we've been working on. But
And I think different for everybody. So some people, like for me, the shame, it was so buried, I didn't even know it existed. And then it was like, holy cow. Some people have that with sadness. Some people have that with anger. Some people don't feel sad, right? And they're like, well, I don't feel sad. Like it's just matter of fact. Like I just don't. I don't cry, and I don't feel. But when you understand the work, you know that sadness always underlies, right? So that person might be angry. I once had a youth who came with a broken, busted up hand, and she said, I punched a wall. And she said, well, I would rather punch a cement wall than cry. So through compassionate inquiry, she broke into tears, 45 minutes, and it was an amazing experience. But yeah, any of those emotions can be tricky, I think.
yeah. Michelle, I haven't asked you how do you blend CI now to your work?
I blend it with with all the work I do. So whether I'm like doing yoga or psychotherapy or coaching, I'm also doing the Beyond Addiction now too.
Mhm.
So as all of them, I'm blending compassion inquiry, but I'm also using it a lot personally.
Mm.
So I continue to do it on myself. I'm continuing to meet periodically with peers so that I can continue unraveling myself. One thing, actually speaking of anger, that came up when I was doing the mentorship program, I was reviewing a video with one of the mentors, and the emotion anger was in the client, and I wasn't able to hold it, and I didn't even realize it.
Mm.
And so I think it's important that I continue to work on myself. So I think that's one of the biggest ways that I continue to use compassion inquiry in my own life, is continue to use it on me. And it's really made me see that the more clear I can be, the more space I can hold for my clients. And it's like fascinating how like one day I'll be working with somebody on my own stuff, and then the next day all the 5 clients that I see are working on the exact same thing. And I'm like, had I not done the work I did yesterday, I wouldn't have been able to do the work I did with my clients the next day. Like it's so mind-blowing, so mind-blowing.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
something I usually say when I talk to clients as well, is I think there's a difference. I think that's what the CI can brings as well, is it's kind of humility somehow, in a sense that we all a work in progress, and by chance we just I usually use the metaphor of the steps, or a ladder. We're just like few steps ahead of our client.
Yes.
So we can like
That's
Absolutely.
beautiful.
give
Yeah.
space to
Yes.
them, but it doesn't
Yeah.
mean we have solution or we are above or anything
Right?
similar, right?
Yeah. Or even when you're in session with a client and something triggers you and you're like, oh man, I gotta work on this. Like, I call my therapist. I'm like, I need to work on this. It just came
Yeah.
up. But it's the awareness too, to be able to say to the client, hey, like what just happened? It's bringing something up in me. And I find that I do that often with my clients, and the safety it creates, the connection that it creates with clients too, to be honest and open enough to be like, hey, I'm like, something similar for me here, and I just need a moment.
Yeah.
It's
Is,
really, yeah.
Yeah.
isn't that
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Kelly. Yeah.
I think I think just exactly like you said, Michelle, I think it really, we're all the same. As Gabor talks all the time, he's the same as his drug addicted clients or his patients, right? And I've never ever tried in my client sessions. If anything, I try to make it known that I am the same. You are a youth, I'm an adult. However, we're both the same. We both go through and have gone through similar things, right? There's no, like I'm up here, you're down here type. It's so important, I think. And I guess maybe that's ego, not to open a can of worms, but right, to keep the ego in check.
If you have ego coming into this program, you'll be rid of it by the end, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
For sure.
It will keep
So
coming.
funny.
Maybe that's what you should advertise it as, Stephanie.
There you go.
The ego killer.
Ego killer.
That's a good one.
It is a good one. It is a lot on the ego, right? Because you're showing yourself to your peers. You're then showing yourself to your facilitator. You're then having your videos reviewed and critiqued, and having to watch yourself on the tape. So, it is a huge ego killer. I really like that,
It
Keely. That's
is.
catchy.
Yeah.
Compassion inquiry, the ego killer.
I better put a
Michelle.
trademark on that. Hey?
Michelle, you catch your ego, you take it to the building. Like, I got you. You're fired.
Yeah. The last thing I was thinking of, what you were mentioning is, and Mary mentioned it as well, is I think what is different in CI than a lot of different practices is when you're able to share that you've been through something similar than your client. I mean, it's not about oversharing. I mean, we practice a lot about the difference between taking the space of your client, but being able to self-disclosure is something a bit new compared to, I think, any practice I've seen the rest. I mean, or I've been practicing in different area.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say around that?
I
Around
think it's
self-disclosure?
I think it's just relating. Gabor explains very well how to do it appropriately. You don't want to take the space, like you said, from your client, but at the same time, it shows them that you can relate to them, that you know what they're going through, and to have that vulnerability, so that if there's something coming up for you or something that you don't know how to fix. I recently had that with, I've gone to deep depths trying to figure out how to help a client. And at the end of the day, I can't. It's really taught me a good lesson that all I can do is allow them to know that I'm here no matter what. And I've right out, and said, like, I don't know how to help you right now, but I want you to know I care. I'm here. And that's all I can do. And then, then the messages start coming in. So it's.
Yeah. But the other thing too, Keely, I think that the other thing on top of everything that you said is that it also normalizes it.
Yes.
So I know, like, when we're doing kind of our calls with Gabor and Satarm and even the facilitators, right? And they do a personal disclosure about something that you're sharing about, I think it brings compassion too in some ways, to be like, you know what,
Yes.
you are not alone in this. I've done similar things. And
Absolutely.
it takes away some of the stigma of some of the things that we're sharing about. So I recently I joined the group in Compassion Inquiry for the suicide awareness, and this is what we talk about is, because I think sometimes we all have dark thoughts from time to time, but it's so taboo to talk about it. And so I think that this is kind of what Compassion Inquiry does, is it allows an environment to talk about things that are taboo, if you will. But the self-disclosure piece, I think, really is a beautiful way of doing it.
Absolutely. And it creates so much safety. It creates safety and connection. Like it does. There's automatic. Yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, I think it's a big part as well is acknowledging that we're not alone, because what shut us down mostly is thinking that we are the only one experiencing whatever we're experiencing at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely takes down the defenses. It takes down the guards, right?
Yeah.
Opens things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So so to wrap up, is there anything you would like to add that I haven't asked, or you're thinking about that we haven't discussed, or what you would like to suggest to anyone who will watch or listen to this podcast and thinking, I might do the course, but what would like to, anything you would like to add? It's freestyle, open mic.
I think it's I can't say enough how much it changed my life professionally and personally. It continues to give me teachings, to teach clients, to teach my children, to teach anybody I come into contact with. It's given me perspectives to look at with myself, to always go back to myself. I think that's what is our responsibility, is to always look at ourselves and to always go back. Why I react the way I do, when I react the way I do. I don't know. I would tell people to just jump in with both feet. That's what I would tell them.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Priya?
Yeah, I would say compassion query is a tool for life. How to be here, how to own your life and take responsibility for it. That's what it's work in progress for me, but that's what it has done for me, and that's what I share with others I work with. And the other thing which I've seen with compassion query, it just brings us all together in this human experience. How is it being human? We may be from different parts of the world, look different, our skin colors may be different, but we are so much, say, we feel the same, we have the same emotions, And that's again with the self-disclosure, learning about it. Uh, it just brings the humanity together. So I believe it should be in school curriculums, and I always think
I agree, Priya.
yeah, I wish I had known it, when I was a youth or when I was in my school or a teenager. I would have lived my life differently or whatever. So it's for yourself and to share with the world. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Priya.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Michelle.
Oh, Keely and Priya like summed it all up.
You should have beat us to it.
I know. Like, well, I've said this a few times. I think this is what was missing in my master's program. I took a master's in counseling psychology, and this is really what was missing is this, all of it. It's kind of hard to, because, I'm also doing the internship and also doing the mentorship program, but all of that together was more beneficial than my master's program. I've learned more about myself and how to do therapy in this program than I did in my master's. So if you're thinking about doing it, just jump in, like just go for it. Because it'll change your life. It'll change the way that you look at things. It'll change the way that you work with people.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to mention and I forgot is on a daily basis, like on a practical level in life, how much you get less triggered
Yes.
with anything, because you work so much on your triggers during the
Yeah.
whole year.
Yeah.
So much on your own work with everything's going on, is then the same situation happen in your life, and it's not that you're over it, but you're always less triggered, and everything goes, I mean, personally, that's what I would say, go way smoother than if you don't do CI, you may be triggered on and on the same from the same situation, having the same response, the same issues, without learning anything. So yeah.
And that trigger's been, it stayed for a longer time prior to compassion query. It was self-torture, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was like,
Yeah.
"Ooh, why this happened to me? Why is the world doing this to me?" And now you get it. And so compassion query has really helped to have compassion for ourselves and stop that train.
Yeah.
And I think compassion for ourselves, when you say that, Priya, that is, I think, a common, you can pretty much say it's a common thing in the world. You have the most caring, most helpful, right? The helper, professional. But where they fail, where from my understanding and observations, where they fail is always compassion for self.
Oh yeah.
Always, always, always. So just that awareness that it creates, like you can make, because of the awareness, you can make more informed, understood choices, or you behave one way and you can realize that it, why you behave that way. So then for next time, right, nothing ever changes overnight because it took 20, 30, 40, 50 years to develop that way. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can say even day to day, when those body sensations and triggers come up, at the end of it, when I do a self inquiry, it's always the need for compassion for self.
Always.
Always, yeah.
Always. One personal, if we have time, Stephanie, just one, it'll take a minute. During our course, I was in the shower and I had a pain in my leg. So just to connect, I never really realized, and maybe some of you with your backgrounds you did, but I never realized how the body holds things. And I definitely didn't understand about the recall memory and nonverbal memory. But I was in the shower and my leg was aching. Like it just, the pain just came on, like just suddenly. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Because my life was very hectic, very busy at the time. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm not, like, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to walk on this. Like if it, it just came so sudden. So I literally on the spot did compassionate inquiry for myself. And what came to me instantly, without my mind thinking it, what came to me was, you need to slow down. It was just right there in front of me. And once I understood that for myself, once I realized that, I was able to then listen, to myself. And yeah, the pain, and I've done that. That was just one. Like, I've done that so many times with different painful situations, and there's so much. I could write a book, probably different things that. So connecting that body and emotions and experience, your body will speak to you. You just have to know how to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to finish, I recall at the beginning of the course, the first part, I don't know when, I started to have like stomachache a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of recall this sensation. And I remember sat down saying, welcome to this anger.
Yeah.
There we go.
Literally, hey.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for
Thank you, Stephanie.
It's really a pleasure to talk to you again and to see what you're doing at the moment and what you've been through. I hope it had helped to answer many people's questions regarding compassionate inquiry, and anything. Then we are here, Michelle and Priya in Canada. Kelly, you are in?
I'm in Canada. Yeah.
Canada as well.
Northern Canada.
Oh yeah, Northern Canada. And
Yeah.
Mary in UK and me in Spain.
This is it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't hesitate to leave your comments and to subscribe to Unknowingly Connected. And let me know what you would like to hear more of in my podcast. Don't forget, it's all connected and we might not even know it. See you soon and Happy New Year.